are fortunate we have His Grace Advaita Krishna Prabhu, who will be speaking to us from the SRIMAD Bhagavatam today. Prabhuji is not new to us. He is one of our own. Actually, he's been a mentor to lots of us on this forum. So he's a very dear friend, dear brother, and a dear mentor. So Prabhuji will put the verse on the screen and then you may start.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so today's verse is second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, text 9. Brahmavacha samyak karunika shiddham vatsate vichikitsitam yadaham chodita somya bhagavad virya darshane. Translation. Lord Brahma said, "My dear boy Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions because I have been inspired to see into the prowess of the Almighty Personality of Godhead, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada." Brahmaji, being so questioned by Naradji, congratulated him, for it is usual for the devotees to become very enthusiastic whenever they are questioned concerning the Almighty Personality of Godhead. That is a sign of a pure devotee of the Lord. Such discourses on the transcendental activities of the Lord purify the atmosphere in which such discussions are held, and the devotees thus become enlivened while answering such questions. It is purifying both for the questioners and for one who answers the questions. The pure devotees are not only satisfied by knowing everything about the Lord, but are also eager to broadcast the information to others, for they want to see that the glories of the Lord are known to everyone. Thus the devotee feels satisfied when such an opportunity is offered to him. This is the basic principle of missionary activities. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity to talk about Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh, I think I missed chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, so I will not miss that. I will chant now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narotamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayat. Nasta Priyeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So today we are reading from second canto, chapter 5, text 9. I reread the verse. Brahma vacha samyak karunika syadhang vatsate vichikitsitam yadaham chodita samya bhagavad virya darshane. Lord Brahma said, "My dear boy Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions because I have been inspired to see into the prowess of the Almighty Personality of Godhead." So in this is almost like the beginning of this chapter 5, in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. The chapter is entitled The Cause of All Causes. And Narad Muni asked a few questions. And the questions he asked is, he wanted to know specifically the truth about the individual soul and the super soul. And the questions are quite telling, very powerful question. And it goes yad rupam, yad ashtinam, yad shishtam, yad sangstam, yad param, yad cha, which means he asked a lot of questions about how the world is manifest, about what is its shelter, how is it created, how does it, what it depends on, and what it is composed of. But also, Narada had a very clear conviction. He said to Lord Brahma, he said, you know almost everything about this creation, like you're holding a small fruit in your hand. And he gave the example of the Amalaki fruit. And he said, but I think you are the supreme independent Lord. You create by your own matter and energy, just like a spider. I know no other thoughts for creation but you. But he also had a doubt. And he said, but why do you perform so much austerity? So in one sense, he's glorifying Lord Brahma. He's saying, you tell us about how this world is manifested. And you also tell us about, who is a maintainer, who is a shelter, what it is composed of. And he is looking at, in the sense of Visharga, how Lord Brahma is managing so many things and doing so many things. But then he had a doubt, because he saw that he looks like Lord Brahma is the supreme, but is he the supreme? Because Lord Brahma is meditating upon someone. So he asked him, he said, why are you involved in so much austerity? You must not be performing this austerity for yourself, but there must be someone more powerful. And because he was quite inspired to see the austerity and the incredible level of application of Lord Brahma to his austerity, he had asked these questions. And therefore now Lord Brahma, he's saying, this is giving me an opportunity to put my situation clear in front of the Supreme Lord. So the questions are like, really, it almost looks like a setup, but because they're both very knowledgeable. Lord Brahma is very, very knowledgeable, and Narad Muni is obviously a very knowledgeable personality. So then he had asked these wonderful questions, and now Lord Brahma is saying, he said, these questions, the way you've asked, means that you're actually merciful to all, including me. So whenever we ask a question about Krishna consciousness, we get an opportunity to explain certain facets of bhakti, devotional service, Krishna consciousness, whichever way we look at it. Then we all become inspired. And question and answers are an integral part, an absolutely integral part of the way SRIMAD Bhagavatam is presented to us. There's a very long samvad of Maitreya Rishi from 3rd canto onwards with Vidura. And before that, there's many samvad, many discussions between Lord Brahma and Narad Muni, and there's always a lot of question and answers. And in the 1st canto, there's a lot of question between Shanakrishi and Sutta Goswami. 2nd canto, and then Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So questions, very important, but we have to be able to ask the right questions. So Brahmaji, being questioned by Narad Muni, had congratulated him, because it is usual for the devotees to become enthusiastic whenever they are questioned. I've just been reflecting on this simple thing. Like in most religious systems that we know, people give sermons. Like, I don't know how it is in Africa, but as far as I know, in Christian churches, people give sermons and then they go. And the other Abrahamic religions also, people read and then they go. There's hardly much opportunity for questions. And even in the Vedic culture, in Hindu, in the usual Hindu dharma, the performance of ritualistic activities, I would say the same thing has followed. All right. So in the early days of Krishna consciousness, when we devotees would give a small talk, and we were young, uneducated, but very enthusiastic and maybe over enthusiastic, we would be asked, we give a small talk anywhere in a program, in a public, or Then we'll ask, is there any questions? And people were surprised, because kind of we expose ourselves to say, okay, if you have any questions. And that is also what Srila Prabhupada had taught us, but Srila Prabhupada imbibed from Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? Because question and answers makes everyone become very enthusiastic, because it is not just always one way. So Narad Muni asking these wonderful questions to Lord Brahma is very inspired, and he's saying, you're being merciful to me and to everyone else. So such discourses on the transcendental activities of the Lord purify the atmosphere. When it says it purifies the atmosphere, it means that it creates, positive spiritual vibrations. And purification of atmosphere in one sense also means that it reduces the lower modes and increases the higher modes, and people become more peaceful. And sometimes by discourses in Krishna Katha, and many times, I would say almost all the time in discourses in Krishna Katha, by people hearing discourses, giving a careful hearing to Srimad Bhagavatam or to Krishna Katha, people become purified. People become free of sinful reactions. People become enthusiastic. So such discourses on the transcendental activities of the Lord purify the atmosphere in which such discussions are held, and the devotees thus become enlivened while answering such questions. So it is purifying both for the questioners and for one who answers the questions. So this whole process of inquiry is purifying. It's purifying for speaker, and it's purifying for the people who are listening. The pure devotees are not only satisfied by knowing everything about the Lord, but are also eager to broadcast the information to others. For they want to see that the glories of the Lord are known to everyone. So the glories of the Lord, which means Krishna Katha, the premises are that Krishna Katha is a one thing that Srila Prabhupada wanted very much, that everyone hears Krishna Katha. And Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America, he started straight away preaching the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. And then after a couple of years, he was reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was explaining about the glories of Krishna. And then he had the Krishna book printed. I remember Mahatma Prabhu telling us that they were following Krishna consciousness, but they didn't have as much information as they would have liked about the Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he said that in 1971 or 72, when the first Krishna book came out, and he said they were like completely enthralled, and then many of them were just sitting in every corner of the temple. The temple in those days were packed, and they were, pouring that Krishna Katha, into the ear by reading. And especially when you think that the early devotees didn't have much information about the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, except for what Srila Prabhupada has been teaching them. And if you had joined maybe 1 year, 2 year, and then you're going all over the place and doing Sankirtan, and you only hear about Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Of course, the Srimad Bhagavatam classes were very intense, and the Srimad Bhagavatam class was full of Krishna Katha. So when this Krishna book came, it was like a revelation to everyone. Now they're starting to know, oh, this is the Lord we are worshiping. So sometimes we tend to think that the preaching has to be more organized, preaching has to be more thought out, preaching has to be more according to maybe some framework, some strategy. But as we progress in Krishna consciousness, more and more we feel that actually preaching really means what Prabhupada is saying here, that we can broadcast the glories of the Lord and make it known to everyone. And this is the basic principle of missionary activities. So the glories of Krishna Katha, if you just go through any of the classes of Srimad Bhagavatam, we can start to understand how Krishna Katha, to begin with, Krishna Katha, it cuts the knots of bondage to the material world. In the first canto, we hear that Narad Muni, when he approached Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva was kind of despondent. Vyasadeva was not feeling very satisfied in his heart after he had written all the Puranas and he had written all the different books. He was sitting and meditating. He said, oh, what have I done that's not quite right? And he looked inside himself, became introspective. He said, but I think I've done everything right. And then at that moment, then Narad Muni came. And Narad Muni actually told him, he said, yes, there is one thing, is that you have not repetitively and in very clear terms spoken about the Supreme Personality of Godhead over and over again, repeating the stories of the Supreme Lord. And he said, therefore, your heart is not satisfied. So this is a very important lesson. So Krishna Katha, it actually, and he says, because if you try to present the philosophy in an indirect way, which is basically that you have talked about the four Purusharthas, you have talked about fruitive activities, you have talked about the different path of yoga, goal, this and that. Very good. But he says people will draw the conclusions that Purusharthas, or doing fruitive activities, are the goal of the Vedic literatures. And he said, but if you had repetitively over and over again in clear, simple, straightforward manner spoken about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that would have given a better message. So Vyasadeva, he redirected his writings. He re-edited Srimad Bhagavatam and he presented it as we know. So many things. When you speak Krishna Katha to the faithful devotees, right? It actually, Krishna Katha cuts the knots of bondage. And even if you speak Krishna Katha to those people who are slightly inclined, not inimical, to Krishna consciousness, then it actually lifts the people from lower mode to higher modes. So even the four Kumaras, they wanted to speak and they wanted to more directly speak about Krishna Katha to the devotees. And in the third canto, you will read how they were asked to talk about the birth of Varaha. And he said, I'm very inquisitive. I want to know about the transcendental pastimes and appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Vidura had asked the same kind of questions over and over again to Maitreya Rishi. And he said, please speak more about Krishna Katha. And Vidura had said to Maitreya that we grew up hearing Mahabharata in the house of the Kauravas, because of course Vyasadeva was there, and he being the father. But he said, we want to talk more about Krishna Katha. We want to hear more about Krishna Katha. We want to hear directly about Krishna Katha. So this is one recurring theme. So then you will see how even the sages, the four sages, they described about Vaikuntha, they described about the activities of Lord Vishnu. So in the very beginning of the third canto, I think chapter 5, Vidura is exclusively interested in Krishna Katha. And he says that remembering the Lord's lotus feet removes all miseries without delay. So he said that remembering the Lord's lotus feet by remembering his Krishna Katha, his pastimes remove all miseries without delay. And one would simply be wasting one's life not going directly. And sometimes when we think about Krishna Katha, then we think, well, what's going to follow just now after this text 9? It's going to be Vidura. It's going to be a lot of beautiful explanations of Brahmaji into how the material world is manifested. So the same thing, you will see that will be repeated in the third canto. And because when Vidura asked Maitreya Rishi about it, Maitreya Rishi didn't know where to start. So you see, the questions are very specific. So then Vidura said, well, why do you start with the Purusha avatar? And here, Narad Muni does the same thing almost. He said, what are the symptoms of this manifest world? What is its shelter? So sometimes we do not want to hear about the creation, which is a subject of first, second, third canto. We do not want to hear about Sharga, Visharga, but this is where the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very clearly remembered, is clearly seen and experienced by Lord Brahma. And Narad Muni is asking that question. But the main thing is hearing these things actually destroy the suffering of persons if we then become engaged in constant remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and hearing directly about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even if it is the creation, even if it is Sharga Visharga, it brings detachment from Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, or the personality of God, Sri Krishna, all our miserable conditions will be gone. And Srila Prabhupada wanted more of this. He wanted more and more Krishna Katha. And if in all our sanghas, in all our Krishna cautious sanghas, if we can talk and hear more about Krishna Katha, everything will become more sublime. But generally, we are more interested sometimes in asking topics that are a little bit more, I would say, tangential, because it relates to what you're more inclined to in the material life. And sometimes we want to hear about topics that are more controversial. And sometimes, it just makes a little bit more interesting, so to speak, materially speaking, for our own material consciousness. But if we want to hear and speak about the qualities of the Lord, like Prabhupada talks in the purport, it produces a destruction of unlimited suffering. And then one develops great attraction. As we hear more and more, we develop attraction for the Katha of the Lord. Because the pastimes of the Lord, the glories of the Lord, it has a very self-revealing nature. And it will bring about a state of bhava, a state of emotional attachment, because we will start to see what we like. It will also give us an idea of Krishna being rasa, being this reservoir of all pleasure, reservoir of all joy. And we will start to pick on things that we are more naturally attracted to, certain qualities of Krishna, certain mannerism of Krishna, certain types of relationship with Krishna, certain types of sthayi bhava, certain types of attraction for certain kind of activities of Krishna. But if you do not hear, then suffering don't go away. Sinful activities don't stop. And we do not become acquainted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and his pastimes, which is so clearly explained in the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. So can you imagine just hearing about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It's seva in itself. And then from there on, then we can develop greater attachment, rati, to serving the lotus feet of the Lord. So this whole thing, devotional service with bhava, with emotion, it's produced by hearing of Krishna Katha. And the chief result of this hearing of Krishna Katha is actually destruction of all different facets of ignorance that is in our heart. And this is the essence of Chatushloki Gita, right? If you take Chatushloki Gita, we can start to see how Chatushloki Gita is actually the verses 10:8, 10:9, 10:10, and 10:11 of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am the source of all material and spiritual world. The wise who know this worship me with love and devotion. And those who are devotees of the Lord, they always talk about me, they converse about me, and they romanticha, tushanticha, romanticha, and they derive great pleasure and satisfaction by hearing and talking about me. And then finally, what does he say? Desham evan, text, I jumped one verse. And then in the text 11, he says, Desham evanukam bhartam aham agyanajam tamaha nasayami atma bhavastu jnana dipena bhashvata. There's two ways we can look at these verses. We can look at these verses as the very essence of the Gita, where we understand Krishna being the Supreme Lord, Master of everything that exists, the Supreme Controller, the source of material and spiritual world. But immediately in the first verse itself, he says, the one who knows this, he worships me with devotion. So the idea of understanding about Krishna is that we want to develop a relationship with him. And in the last verse, he concludes very nicely, Tesam evanukam bhartam. And I who have mercy on you, my devotees, because he's saying to those who worship him, who are dedicated to him, who enjoy talking about him, who relish Krishna Katha and discussion about him. And he says at the end, if there's any shade of ignorance left, if any dark attachment left in your heart, I with the shining lamp of I residing in your heart, because Krishna is there in our heart, he will take out the darkness born out of ignorance, which means that we try our best by hearing Krishna Katha. And if any anarthas, any impediment, any blockages that's stopping us to actually completely see the self-revealing nature of Krishna in his wonderful transcendental pastimes, then Krishna will take care of that. Right? So this is why we want to hear Krishna Katha. We want to hear Krishna Katha. So therefore, Lord Brahma rightly, he is very enthused by the wonderful questions of Narad Muni. And he is not saying, okay, he's saying, now I can explain about the prowess, the all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he had experienced it. When Lord Brahma, he realized his existence being aja, being unborn in a material sense, then when he looked down and he tried to fathom the beginning and the end of his, the beginning of his existence, He couldn't. He realized that there is one incredible source, one incredible source from which I'm coming. But then he couldn't understand neither the beginning nor the end of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He couldn't even understand the very beginning of the stem of the lotus flower. So he saw this wondrous, powerful existence around him. And then he's starting to understand that because of his supreme intelligence. So Brahma is intelligence personified. You can understand that there is something higher than that. But then later on, the Lord gave him some kind of understanding and darshan, not complete at this time. So he has an idea that by austerity and meditation, by austerity and worship, by austerity and yagyas, he can actually serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So our Srimad Bhagavatam is full of Krishna Katha. And it is the essence of all topics. Krishna Katha is the essence of all topics. And why? Because there is so much suffering in this world. There is so much suffering in this world. And all these sufferings of the conditioned soul will go away by just hearing Krishna Katha. You see, there are two types of people, those who are materialists and those who are involved in tarka. And, those who are involved, materialists are generally involved in tarka and pratishta, which means arguments and arguing. And this argument and arguing is like asking questions every day. And Srila Prabhupada in the first canto, he says, the birds are asking questions, the animals are asking questions, and everyone's asking questions every day, but they're not asking the right questions. So this tarka and pratishta, this argument and arguing, they're both like animals because they lack the essence of what is more appropriate for our devotional life. But then there are other people who take the umbrella of they take the shelter of the umbrella of Krishna's lotus feet. And those who take shelter of the umbrella of Krishna's lotus feet, they don't burn up in the heat of material existence. Rather, they attain joy, they attain relief. And by drinking topics concerning the qualities and the nectar related to Krishna, they actually conquer death. They forget about this material existence. And they also develop a proper sense of their existence. They do not attach so much importance to the material body, whatever age that they may be, whether we're young, whether you are more mature, whether we are older, because that is the very, very essence of Krishna Katha. And throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, the questions are all related to Krishna Katha. So Kapila Dev also explains, he said, Mad guna shruti matreda mai sarva guhya chaye manogatir avichinna yata gangam bhasho amubbudho. And he said, the mind, because the mind, by hearing about the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mind flows continuously. Yatha gangam bhasho amubbudho. Just like the Ganges flows constantly, uninterrupted, no matter what you put in its path. It will just go by the side and will keep going until it reaches the sea. So because the mind, by hearing about the qualities of the Krishna, flow continuously towards Krishna, the Lord being the personality who he is, full of wonder, full of joy. The other day, my friend told me, he said, I see the spiritual world as a land of magic. And I said, oh, I didn't think like that. He said, it's a magical world. No one has to work. Everything is so wonderful. Everywhere you go, it is like, it is so wondrous. Everything you see, it is superlative. Everything that is beauty is supremely more beautiful. Everything that is sweet is incredibly so sweet. Everything that is joyous to hear is incredibly so melodious. He said it's a world of magic. It's a world of magic. So if you want to hear about this magical world and all the inhabitants of this magical world, then we have to become like a child and we have to keep going on and on about the Krishna Katha. So the Lord is never separated from his devotees who hear his Krishna Katha. Lokana bhakti yogasya nirgunasya hi utadahanam. And it is the highest perfectional gain for all humanity. He said, ahaituki avyayahita. It is the highest perfectional gain and it is unmotivated. What is that? It is the hearing, Bhakti Purushottame, hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is the highest thing that can happen to anyone and everyone. No wonder that Srila Prabhupada wanted to print Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada really wanted to print Srimad Bhagavatam and really wanted to push, the distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the beginning, we maybe didn't have so much taste for it. And now we think like, isn't it better that we preach this kind of philosophy, that kind of philosophy? And some devotees are also maybe going a little bit left, right, and center. Some devotees are very left, some are more right, and some are more in the center. There were some very interesting discussions in Hungary about which type of preaching is better. Should we adapt to kind of the technological inclinations of the people, the inquiry that are more interesting to the people, or should we just, if you really think of it, I think direct presentation of Krishna Katha is probably the best option. Srila Prabhupada, when he was in India, when he was printing his Back to Godhead, he was taking a completely new paradigm. And the paradigm is, back to Godhead. No one thinks about that. No one thinks, okay, we want to go back to God. Who talks about that? Even in the pseudo-religious organizations or the religious organizations, at least in the Hindu culture, they don't talk about, okay, let's go back home, back to Godhead. Let's go back to the lotus feet of the Lord. They have no idea about these things. But Prabhupada is very clear. Prabhupada is very, and in the very preface of Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, Yatta Vishargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pati Sloka Gunanabudyapi Namani Anantasya Yatan Kitaniyad Kirananti Shudanti Shadava. He said, the honest man, by hearing about the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is even spoken or read, and if it is even not composed very nicely, will bring about a change in the consciousness of humanity, of people in general. So direct hearing Krishna Katha is so much required in this world. But then the soft approach is we do the music and the kirtan, the Harinam, give out the books, and that is all Krishna Katha. And then people will come to it. So Brahmaji is very nicely qualifying the questions by Narada, and he's congratulating him. And he said, you're being merciful to me. Even though that Lord Brahma is his father and his spiritual master, I can explain about the prowess of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is our parampara, that is our parampara. These are the first two important personalities in our parampara, and they want to talk about Krishna Katha. So much the glories of Krishna Katha. if we actually hear Krishna Katha every day, you know, sometimes we have had that experience. I don't know, many of us, I won't say all of us, that sometimes you start to do something slightly a little bit on the side. And then when you come back to Krishna Katha, and just this afternoon, I was following my Bhakti Vaibhava class, and then something was said about some demigods and devatas, and I immediately went to the Nectar of Devotion and I was looking into it. And it was enthralling to just read Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. And he's talking about the different demigods, and he's talking about the different categories of devotees, and he's talking about, and I thought, well, why don't I read that more often? You know, and it's like, it's nice. It's nice. You have to read about Krishna Katha. We want to hear about Krishna more and more. Yesterday, we were talking about Krishna Katha again. And my friend Hare Krishna Das Prabhu, who is sitting at this big wheel, you know, he's a Bhagavatam Pandit. You know, he's always hearing, and he's immersed in Srimad Bhagavatam. He lives in Norway. He drives a bus, but he's been a many years friend of mine, and he studies Srimad Bhagavatam over and over again, and it's all nectar. It's all nectar. Of course, maybe we say, but Prabhu, it's nectar for the devotees, what about for the non-devotees? Well, you can present it in a different way. But because if it is, Prabhupada always presented it as a magical world, no birth, no death, no old age, and it's all beautiful, it is all very nice, and it is a magical. Everything about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes are all magical. You have to look at it like that. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much. I hope that we can all inspire each other, and we become inspired to read Srimad Bhagavatam and relish. I remember just one more point. I asked my spiritual master, I said, I'm just very impetuous when I read. He said, what do you mean? I said, just jump from one to the other because I get completely blown out. You know, I get really, wow, fantastic philosophy, fantastic this, fantastic. And I try to corroborate, and I go to this book and that book. And I said, but I don't think it's a good idea, no, Guru Maharaj? He said, no. So I said, how do I change that? And he said, just relish. He told me, just relish. Just whatever you're reading, read, then lean back, put your head up, think about it, smile, and then say, wow, it is so nice. And then you relish. And then you will see it makes a change. It did make a change to me. It made a massive change to me. Instead of always being in search of this knowledge and that knowledge, which is basically Tarka and Pratishta, which is basically in your own mind, there's the good and the bad. There's the devil and the demon, you know, and the devil and the godly person, the saintly. And you're trying to convince your mind about this, about that, about it. So if you let the self-revealing, all-powerful nature of Krishna Katha, just let it enter into your heart and receive it with a smile and receive it with joy and accept it. Oh, this is so magical. This is so sweet. It will actually change us. And then we don't have to convince our mind intellectually by tarka and pratishta, which is by argument and arguing. We can just say, oh, this is so sweet, nice. Krishna Katha is great. Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class as always. It's very beautiful to hear from you all the time. Dear devotees, if anyone has a question, comment, you raise your physical hand up or the hand emoji, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We will have one special announcement before we leave the Sangha today. So I think Salika Prabhu will be doing that, but we'll go over devotees wanting to say something. Prabhuji, I have a question from the purport that Srila Prabhupada gave so beautifully. And let me see. if I may share the screen.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada was saying here, the pure devotees, the pure devotees are not only satisfied by knowing everything about the Lord, but are also eager to broadcast the information to others. And here is where I'm asking, for they want to see that the glories of the Lord are known to everyone. So if this is the mood of the pure devotees, and we are all encouraged to become pure devotees, yet we are told by our acharyas in the matter of offenses against chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Specifically, offense number 9 states that one should not share this knowledge to the faithless. Those who are faithless, we should not spread these glories to. How do we reconcile such statement with what is being said here, that the glories of the Lord should be shared to each and everyone?
If you look at the person who is actually doing this sharing, he actually has a very special position. The person who does the sharing has a very, very special position. He's actually authorized to do this sharing. In what way? I'll show you. I'll find a reference and I'll come straight back to it. And he is called the Madhyama Adhikari. The Madhyama Adhikari, he has a very special disposition to him. And what is that special disposition given to him by Krishna? Is that he is Ishwareta Dadhineshu, Balisheshu Dishatsucha, Prema Maitri Kripopeksha, Yakaroti Samadhyama. Can you allow me to just share? I have a file here. Can I?
Yes, we're going to do that.
Okay, so let me do that. Okay, yeah, you have to enable it. Okay.
You may.
Okay, let me share screen. Okay, here. Let's look at this. The mercy of the Lord and his devotee. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to look at it in a broader sense. He said, Bhakti is obtained by the Lord's mercy, but then why doesn't the mercy fall on everybody? Is the Lord partial? Is the unqualified mercy of the devotee the cause of mercy for Bhakti? One will find one interesting definition. It is in SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. And this is what I'm reading. You see, Ishwareta Adhineshu Balisheshu Vishatsucha Prema Maitri Kripopeksha Yakaroti Samadhyama. He says, an intermediate or second-class devotee called the Madhyama Adhikari. I'm taking it from a little bit far and I'll come back to your direct question. An intermediate or second-class devotee called Madhyama Adhikari offers his love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is a sincere friend to all the devotees, but he shows mercy to the ignorant people who are innocent. Shows mercy to the ignorant people who are innocent and disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is like Krishna's salesman. He's like Krishna's representative. He is Krishna's distributing agency. The devotee that goes out with the books, the devotee that goes out with the kirtan, the devotees that goes out and hold discourses and program, the devotee who goes to university and colleges. That is his mission statement. which is in that verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. He's called a Madhyama Adhikari. And the Madhyama Adhikari, he has a flame of bhakti in his heart, which may be small, which may be intense, which may be very powerful, depending on his advancement. But he is a one person, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that given the nature of bhakti, which is the mercy of the Lord and his devotees working together in tandem, the Lord cannot go outright and give his mercy to anyone and everyone. So he empowers a person by his very nature. That person will give bhakti to everyone, and the Lord will not be told to be partial because he is not the one who is giving it out. So if the devotee who is giving out bhakti, he is giving out, because in essence, what is it that he's giving? He's talking about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So basically, he is asking everyone to become a devotee of the Lord. He is asking everyone to take to the path of bhakti yoga. But it is in his very nature that he sees someone who is ignorant, and therefore he shows mercy to him. And it is in his very nature, prema maiti kripopeksha bali sheshu dvishatsucha. And it is in his very nature to disregard those who just, cause problem, troublemakers, and who's going to sabotage the program, or is going to throw the books, or is going to, vilify Krishna, and he just walks away from it. So it's not that we are. He exhibits a partiality, right? So the Lord accepts that, and he becomes subservient to the desire of the devotee. So the Lord becomes subservient to the desire of the devotee who wants to give out mercy to others. And in that, sometimes the Lord is unpredictable. The Lord is unpredictable because he can decide to give his mercy even to Chakai and Madhai if he wants. And one other devotee who does a little bit of a problem, like Chota Haridas, then despite all the pleading from Nityananda and all the other immediate devotees in the entourage of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did not give mercy to him. So yes, Vedically speaking, from the Vedic literatures, we should avoid the people who are going to make more offenses. But at the same time, Krishna is a lot more merciful to the non-devotees who do not know much. And there's one very interesting incident. Lord Brahma approaches Lord Shiva, and he says, if someone who is not so much aware about Krishna conscious principles or devotional service, he does a mistake, you don't take it so seriously, do you? Why do you take it so seriously? So the Lord has his compassion overriding. So if we take that and apply it as a smarter principle, no, I'm not going to go there because I worked out in this college, there's only maybe 5-10 people who will be favorably disposed to East Krishna consciousness, and 95% of them are demons. The devotees doesn't think like that, because it is very nature to go there and pick out the innocent. So he will pick out the innocent. He will find out those who are favorably disposed by presenting the philosophy, and then he will give them more Krishna consciousness. It is in his very nature to do that. So he cannot help it. But it is also in his very nature to know that those are very envious, so let's not go there. So we tend to think of it in one way, but we should think of it in tandem, that he's authorized to go and create Krishna consciousness because he is kind and merciful to the ignorant. But it is also in his nature to see the envious. So I think it works out well. Why not?
Well, Thank you so much, Rory, for the answer. Yeah, I think I'm really satisfied with the answer you gave, except that one thing you said is causing me to ask another question. That is, the devotees are going out there to give bhakti to the world. Now, there is this saying, both within ISKCON and outside of ISKCON, that one cannot give what he does not have. And this statement, as ordinarily as most of us might consider it to be, has led to so many devotees become what we today now know as Redwicks. Because some devotees think that only the Nitya Siddhas can give Krishna, or they have Krishna. The Nitya Siddha has Krishna, so only he can give Krishna. Nobody else can give Krishna. But here we're saying that devotees are going out and giving bhakti. Devotion.
Who is giving bhakti? Because I understand the question.
Okay.
I understand the question. Bhakti is independent, my dear friend. Bhakti is completely independent, and bhakti can only be given by bhakti. So someone who doesn't have bhakti cannot give bhakti. So someone has a small flame of bhakti, he can light someone else's flame of bhakti. So bhakti in the ultimate sense is in 3 stages. No, there's sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. But it is the same seed. It is the same seed. It is the same seed. It is the same bhakti lata, beach, the seed of the same plant. So if someone has a little bit of faith in Bhagavad Gita and he start to do some Bhagavad Gita courses, and other people start to follow Bhagavad Gita, then what is wrong with that? But the devotee who is studying the Bhagavad Gita from Srila Prabhupada, he will give it in the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada, which is to make people become devotees of Krishna, whereas he himself is trying to be a devotee of Krishna. So what does he do? He has to wait till become Gaurkishore Das Babaji? Does he have to wait to become a Uttama Adhikari and become Gaurkishore Das Babaji, become a Madhyama Adhikari? The point is, Madhyama Adhikaris don't preach. Uttama Adhikaris don't preach.
Yeah.
Uttama Adhikaris see everything as Krishna's pastime. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked Gaurkishore Das Babaji, he said, Gurudev, let's go to Calcutta to preach. He said, I'm not going down to this material world. He said, I'll stay in Navadvip Dham. And he felt Calcutta was a material world. Navadvip Dham is a spiritual world. So who preaches? Who gives out Krishna consciousness? Samadhyama Adhikari. If you really understand, the Kanishta Adhikari is too much involved in his own salvation. He has so much faith in deity worship. But who preaches? The one who is described in the description, the Madhyama Adhikari, he preaches. He is the one who sees the innocent. He sees those who are suffering, and he sees those who need. And there's another description of the Madhyama Adhikari. I will read it to you. And it is Harinam Chintamani. And he says, Krishna Prema, Krishna Bhakte Maitri Acharana, Bali Seta Kripa Ara Dvesa Upekshana, Karilena Madhyama Bhakta, Shuddha Bhaktahan, Krishna Name Adhikara Karena Arjan. One who has love for Krishna. Okay. let's ask a broad question in this forum of Vaishnavas here, devotees. Do we have love for Krishna? Yes, of course we have love for Krishna. We have love for Krishna. Otherwise, why would we be pursuing this life for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years? One who has love for Krishna, who makes friends with the devotees. Do we want to be friends with the devotees? Of course, we want to be friends with the devotees. Who shows mercy to the neophytes and ignorant people. Do we go out and do Harinam and try to give out books so that others can follow the path we are following? Of course we do. I'm just reading the translation and giving an explanation at the same time. So, so one who has love for Krishna, who makes friends with the devotees, who shows mercy to the neophytes and ignorant, and who avoids the envious devotee. Envious is a Madhyama Adhikari. Is a Madhyama Adhikari. And now wait for the next phrase. And is considered a pure devotee, a Shuddha Bhakta. He is qualified to chant the holy name of Krishna. That's from Harinam Chintamani, chapter 8. So now you tell me. So yesterday I was also giving this discussion. One who is on the path of pure devotional service is a pure devotee, which means that you've taken the bus of, in the front it's written, the bus is not going to Karma Yoga, is not going to Hatha Yoga, is not going to Buddhism, the bus in the front it's written pure devotional service. You're in that bus. Means that you abandon all other process. You are involved in the process of bhakti yoga. And you have troubles in your life, you don't go to the devatas. You can't control your mind, you don't start following Buddhism. You have problem and trouble with your whatever, you don't start throwing this and throwing that philosophy around. You follow the path that is explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, in the Shruti Shastras, in the Bhakti Shastras, and Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, whatever. And you follow that path. So you are in the bus where the destination is pure devotional service. But within that bus, you haven't actually understood 100% the Swarupa, the nature of pure devotional service. But you want that bus. You are embarked on that bus, pure devotional service bus. And inside that bus, there may be 50, 100, 50,000, 100,000, 10,000 devotees. And they may all be struggling with different karmas and jnanas and other inebrities. So Rupa Goswami, he describes Anya Bilashita Sunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Right? One is completely anavrita, free of all desires for karma and jnana. Right? And other things. Anya Bilashita Sunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, Anukulyena Krishna Anusilanam. So in a very positive, in a very favorable way, Anukul Rup, not Pratikul. Anukulyena Krishna Anusilanam. He is developing Anushila. He developing Seva Bhav, attachment, love for Krishna. Bhakti Rutamam. That is the highest kind of bhakti. So, but why is bhakti described as a plant? Because it grows gradually, just like a plant grows gradually. So in the very beginning stages, Bhakti Lata has two leaves. And the one leaf is Kleshagni, destroys the suffering, the causes of sufferings. And the other brings good qualities. So once the causes of suffering, which is, avidya, ashmita, so on and so forth, is destroyed, and you have some good qualities, and you want to share. Or do you wait for the whole tree of bhakti to bear fruits before you can share? No, it's gradual. It's gradual. So this, I read it again, this from Harinam Chintamani by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And this translation that I'm reading is not a translation of Srila Prabhupada. It is a translation of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And it says, one who has love for Krishna, who makes friends with the devotees, who shows mercy to the neophyte and ignorant people, and who avoids the envious is a Madhyama Adhikari, and is considered a pure devotee, a Shuddha Bhakta. He is qualified to chant the holy name of Krishna, Harinam Chintamani. That's my answer.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the references to add clearer explanation to what you were giving us. So thank you. Anyone else with any question, comment, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shri Govinda Ji, Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanavad pranams. All glories to
Hare Bol.
Gurudev, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to you.
Jai Govinda. Hare Bol.
Yeah, Prabhu. I have one question, and this question, I don't know how to frame it. It's scattered everywhere. So I don't know how to pack it and make it one. I give it to you. But
Try.
the question,
Speak your heart. Don't worry about the mind.
Yeah, it surrenders around the Kanista, Madhyama, and Uttama. You rightly said that the Uttama, they have love for devotees. In other words, those on the highest platform of love of Krishna, they automatically love devotees. So I'm relating this to the relationship that the living entities has with Krishna. You know, every living entity has a particular relationship with the Lord. Some relate to the Lord as a friend. Some as parents. It goes on and on and on and on like that. So a living entity covered by the three modes of material nature. These qualities is hard to reveal or demonstrate, but at least we still have it because it's our eternal assets. So my question is that, does one automatically have to develop love for devotees before he can be classified as a Madhyama Adhikari? And don't you think that our eternal nature also pushes us to relate to each and every person differently? Like I said, you know, a whole question is scattered in my mind and I don't know how to put it. But I guess you get my point. We have eternal nature, eternal relationship with the Lord. So this relationship, like a friend, if I have relationship with the Lord as a friend, then naturally I'm very friendly. And you can see that in our dealings with the common conditioned souls. Some people are very, very friendly. You know, they can easily make friends like this. And some, no matter what you do, they always crawl into their shells. That nature is not there, but they are very serviceable.
Yeah, but
they are ready to give.
We're talking, you're comparing material friendship and the other friendship is really being a benefactor, more like. The Madhyamadikari is more like a friend, means that he doesn't compete, but he talks about Krishna. Like,
what I'm trying to understand is, see, these various qualities we have in regards to the relationship we have with Krishna, can these qualities still be demonstrated here, even though we are conditioned souls? Because it is part of us eternally. If so, eternally, if I have a relationship with Krishna as a friend, means I'm very friendly. Someone may not have the same relationship. And so, how can that person be friendly if he doesn't have that quality?
Well, I think it's a very speculative question, because you're thinking that if you have a sthayi bhav, a fixed relationship with Krishna and Sakya Ras, then why, and if you have that eternally, what you're assuming that you have that eternally, then if you had that eternally, that question won't arise, that why we're here in the modes of material nature. So no, we don't have that eternally. If one is situated in that sthayi bhav, which is a non-changing position, then we wouldn't be in that situation right now. So it's a hypothetical question. So it means that those who have friendly nature or those who had eternal sakyaras with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a very speculative question, and actually it doesn't hold much water. So people have different material qualities here, which may resemble spiritual qualities, but that's not an indication of their reflection of the original qualities, because we are not God, we are not Krishna, and Krishna comes and his qualities are reflected in so many different things. Our qualities are just an imposition of the mind on our senses, an imposition of our ego, our intelligence on our material consciousness. Unless we become devotees, we don't develop good qualities. So when we start to become devotees, then we start to, there's that famous verse in the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. It explains that those who become devotees of Krishna, they develop all the good qualities of the demigods. What are those who don't become devotees? The qualities, material qualities, are just they're driving the chariot of the mind. So the assumption is not very philosophically sound. So I don't know how to put some kind of explanation to it. It doesn't mean that because we are friendly, we had a sthayi bhav of Sakyarasa with Krishna originally. We cannot assume that. There's no shastric praman for this.
Yeah, like I said, it's something that is lingering in my mind as we're talking about the different stages of love.
No,
so,
first love means, love to Krishna is a different thing. It's there in our, it's there, the potentiality of it is there, but you practice, you develop rati, you develop attachment, you have to go over all your anarthas, all your impediments, and the process. Right now we are struggling with sambandha, that is, what is the importance of our relationship with Krishna? So we are not embarked fully on the process of uncovering that relationship, which is the second part. Yeah. Okay, so I will stop a bit earlier. Unless you have one or two more questions, I will stop because I've had a long day.
All right, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Does anyone have a question, comment? Otherwise, I will. Prabhuji, there is a line you were addressing, and you did touch on something which I feel is very important. Maybe you could add a little bit more to what you were saying. And it's a question that yes, okay, I think Hare Krishna Prabhu has a question.
Yes,
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Go on.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, wonderful. Thank you very much. I just wanted to add one thing concerning about preaching to the non-devotees questions. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord, the end of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said that this knowledge should not be given to non-devotees. And Srila Prabhupada had commented about this in the purport. In the audience, there's all kind of people, but there's some innocent people, and for those person innocent, this knowledge has been given. So as you say that Madhyamadikari, he comes to the level of preaching, but sometimes Uttamadikari, they come to the low level of Madhyamadikari and they preach to the devotees, to the non-devotees, and they can distinguish within who is devotee, who are non-devotee, and who are innocent. So
yes,
that's the point I want to say that. The Uttamadikari himself, he comes to the Madhyama stage and he preach. Sometimes it's like that, the great devotee.
Yes, it's a very interesting point you brought up. It's very nice. Thank you, Prabhu. Very good point. But Srila Prabhupada is a Mahabhagavat, then he takes a preaching service. And Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj is a Mahabhagavat, he does not take a preaching service. So when Srila Prabhupada takes a preaching service, he's assuming the role of a Madhyamadikari, just like a doctor. He's qualified to do surgery, but when he comes down to the hospital and he sees maybe there's not enough nurses, then he does some nursing work because that's required, right? But Srila Prabhupada, like you must know this already. I'm not pointing it out. You know that he doesn't become a Madhyamadikari. But my other point I'm saying is a Madhyamadikari by his very nature. We can forget the example of Srila, we can put aside the example of Srila Prabhupada coming to the level of Madhyamadikari and preaching. We can put that aside. But the fact that so many other devotees who are not at all on the level of Uttamadikari or Mahabhagavat, they're doing the preaching work, they're doing the seva. But the empowerment is coming for them to do that because it is in their nature to do that work. It is in their very, job description to do that work. Because they distinguish between the innocent, they see those who are advanced. They see those who are less advanced. Then they see those who are innocent. Then he sees those who are envious and who are demoniac. He sees all of them. Therefore, he is perfectly in the right position to understand that by his very nature. So that is his job description. But in a more deeper tattva way, the reason that is there is because there is no other way, absolutely zero other way for devotional service, bhakti yoga, bhakti, to be distributed in the world, to be given in the world, any other way. There's no other way. You cannot start to do Patanjali yoga system and promote bhakti. You cannot do karma yoga and promote bhakti. You cannot make people become pious and hoping that this will bring bhakti. You cannot make people do all kinds of other system so that they can get bhakti. No way. Because if by punya you can get bhakti, that means punya awards bhakti. If by yoga you can get bhakti, that means Patanjali Yoga System Sutra awards bhakti. If by doing charity you get bhakti, that means charitable work awards bhakti. No way. Bhakti is fully, totally, 200% independent. Bhakti is actually the wealth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and comes down from the Golok Vrindavan down to us. And it is awarded. One of the qualities of bhakti when you study nectar of devotion is it is awarded. It is awarded. So who gives the award? Someone who is authorized to give the award. Someone is authorized to give the award. He is given by him or by her. And that is the very nature of bhakti. Bhakti is 100% independent. And therefore, bhakti can only be had by bhakti. That's why promoting Krishna consciousness, chanting the holy name, talking about Krishna Katha is all done by devotees. And one simple example that hit my mind the other day, Sahadev Prabhu, is when Prabhupada said, but 700 copies of Bhagavad Gita was printed before he decided to have Bhagavad Gita as it is. One thing hit my mind is all the other copies of Bhagavad Gita didn't make anyone devotee, but this one did. Because this one is coming from the right source, the right method, and those who have bhakti and studying Bhagavad Gita and teaching Bhagavad Gita for the very purpose it is, bhaktosmi, chapter 4, text 3, Bhaktosmi Sakha Cheti Rasyam Yetaduttamam. You're my friend, you're my devotee. You will understand, I'm giving it to you. And in the purport, Bhagavad Gita 4.3, Prabhupada says this is the only way.
Well, thank you so much.
So two premises, just to complete. Bhakti is independent. You can be the best of the best of the best of Jnani, the best of the best of yogis, the best of karma yogis, the best of meditators, the best of educated Vedantists. Unless you get the mercy of a devotee, you cannot get bhakti. Because bhakti is independent.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for your question, which is actually in line with, in line with what I was just about to say, because about 3 months ago, close to 4 months ago in April, His Holiness Chandramali Maharaj had a program in the New Vrindavan, which some of us attended. And there was a seminar, and it was interesting. Maharaj was in the seminar, not as the speaker, but as audience. And he asked a question because the speaker was talking about different stages of devotional service. And the speaker was talking about Uttama, which is above the Madhyama and the Adhikaris. So they do not preach. But sometimes, like you rightly said, the Uttama come to the level of the Madhyama. Now, how do we, as students, know that this person is operating on the level of Madhyama, but he is not Madhyama? And therefore, some of us may say that, okay, this person, because he's preaching, he's not Uttama, he's Madhyama. Now, how do we tell that? Just like what Prabhuji was saying, if Uttama sometimes comes to the level of Madhyama, Uttama coming to the level of Madhyama, then some devotees who are actually pure devotees may even appear as ordinary devotees.
Yes.
Sometimes may kind of give some opposing non-devotional attitude or questions, but they are at that level. So it's a little bit complex, but you don't have enough time. Probably thank you for your love, your time, and especially like Krishna Das Prabhu, your question, I really appreciate it. Salika Prabhu, if you may speak, we have a special announcement to make before Prabhuji leaves.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my respectful obeisances of Lucy's Founder Chairship Prabhupada. Thank you very much for the lecture, Prabhuji. We have a special announcement and need to express an appreciation. I think Prabhu is still on the call. Sorry.
Yes, he is.
Okay, fine. So how do I start with this? The platform from the inception was an innovation by the few minds in West Africa to bring about this opportunity for devotees to come together and preach. And initially, 2 people were instrumental to funding the maintenance. As we all know, Zoom platform is not a free platform. It's financially involved. There's a finance involved in maintenance and running it. And from inception, 2 persons have actually supported. Is Grace Ganeshak Prabhu And then most of the time, it is Krishna Prabhu that has been funding the sustenance of this platform. But we have one devotee in the house. He came once to the platform and he loved and appreciate what we're doing. And they decided that he wants to be a part of it. So we wanted to use this opportunity to express appreciation to that devotee. Mr. Ghost, you'll see one participant by the name Ghost iPhone. We want to express our deep appreciation to him. He came to the platform once and he loved the endeavor and the step of devotees to preach and expand the cause of Bhagavatam. So he voluntarily, without asking him, decided to sponsor the subscription for our platform for 6 months. And he fulfilled that promise yesterday. So we want all of the devotees to unmute and loudly help us to chant a powerful Hare Krishna Mahamantra to appreciate him.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare
for
Thank you
helping.
very much. It was supposed to be anonymous, actually.
Don't worry. We are family.
All right.
about Mr. Gul.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Gul, he has been my friend when I was a temple president in Lagos.
Okay.
We are not hearing you again, Kavi.
Also, he went to London and he missed my number. Then recently he connected back and he said, Kavi, I still want to hear about Krishna. You used to come to my office and tell me about Krishna. I want to continue to hear about Krishna. So I said, oh, very good. Then this is how I brought Mr. Go to this platform. And the first time he came, he loved the platform. And he just wrote me, I know this platform, they are paying to keep this platform. I want to support. Oh, I said, thank you, Mr. Go. Because I want to be coming every day. And yesterday he decided to give to pay for the 6 months. So we really appreciate Mr. Gul. Thank you very much. And
My pleasure. My pleasure. And I thank you all for making me learn more. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you very much. Sadiq, over to you.
Yeah. Sanika, thank you so much for making this.
So I think, sir, Hare Krishna.
Horrible.
Yeah, I think if you announce to the devotees how much it costs to pay for 1 month on this platform, many devotees may like to contribute also. So maybe later you can let us all know.
Okay.
€18.
All right, we'll do that. In the first place, again, we would like to say a big thank you to Guru Prabhu. And we are sorry for the inconvenience we put you in because you really didn't want this to be announced. You did it out of love. You did not want to broadcast yourself for doing this. But we also couldn't bury our love and appreciation for your service. So please forgive us if it created any inconvenience. It was just out of love and appreciation to your devotional service. Hare Krishna. So on this note, we're going to humbly request the devotees to kindly unmute. And we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker and mentor, His Grace Advaita Krishna Prabhu, for always being here and giving us his love and wisdom. So, can you all unmute, please?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Chakavatam Yascha, Kripasindhya Ivacha, Itaram Bhavnevyo, Vaishnavevyo, Namo Namaha.
All glories to His Grace Advaita Krishna Prabhu ki.
Jai.
All glories to assembled Vaishnava devotees ki. Jai.
Jai, Jai, Jai.
Haribol.
Wow.